Hi ladies, this is Miss Page here. We're going to do our ELA mini-lesson today. We're going to read a story called Trouble on the Marsh. And as we're reading, we're going to think about how we can make inferences to answer our questions and how we can look at the different character actions and what results those have. And remember, our inferences is where you take your knowledge from your brain, you take the knowledge that you gain from the text, and you put them together to make a most appropriate and reasonable response. Okay, so let's get started. Read along with me. There were problems on the marsh. Officer Snodgrass, the snail, was the only member of the police force. He was new to the job, and he was very slow. One day, Fabian the frog hopped over to Snodgrass's office. "That beaver dam is blocking my view of the tastiest flies," he complained. 2 weeks later, Snodgrass arrived at the dam. "Do you have a permit for this dam?" he asked Bernadette the Beaver. "What?" she cried. "You must obey the law," said Snodgrass. "This is an outrage," cried Bernadette. She slapped her tail on the marsh, and her splashy outburst drew a crowd of animals who were equally outraged. When Snodgrass finally arrived back at his office, he was met with a group of very angry animals. "What's going on here?" asked Snodgrass. "That dam is saving our lives," said Topo the turtle. "Without it, the bears would eat us. There would be flooding everywhere without that dam. We'd all be washed away," said Una the opossum. "Whoa!" said Snodgrass. Suddenly, from above, Sawney the songbird sang, "And my family would starve." Snodgrass sighed. "I'll be back." Snodgrass went into his shell and to think and study his law books. He found one law that might just fix the problem. He emerged from his office. "It is time for a vote," he told the animals, "to decide if a permit is needed." The animals in the marsh cast their votes behind the cattails. The results were 231 to 1 in favor of not requiring a permit. "The dam will stay," Snodgrass announced. "Hooray!" the animals cried. Rollo, the marsh rabbit, lifted Snodgrass up and carried him on his back all the way around the marsh. The animals chanted, "Snodgrass! Snodgrass!" Snodgrass couldn't remember ever getting anywhere so fast. He made Rollo his deputy. Now he had some help on force, along with some speedy transportation. Things were looking up on the marsh. Okay, now that we've read through it, I want to go back and highlight a few things. It's important that we know that a dam is a blockage in the water that stops water from moving, so it holds up water in a specific place. I think that's important. And when we're looking at our picture, we can see that Bernadette the Beaver, she's out there. She's blocking the water up there, and she would like it to stay. Okay. And then as we look through, we just want to look through. So I'm going back up to these first 3 paragraphs up here, and I'm going to chunk it together. I'm going to read it and chunk together just to refresh my brain as to what those parts are mostly about. There were problems on the marsh. Officer Snodgrass the snail was the only member of the police force. He was new to the job, and he was very slow. One day, Fabian the frog hopped over to Snodgrass's office. "That beaver dam is blocking my view of the tastiest flies," he complained. 2 weeks later, Snodgrass arrived at the dam. So as I'm reading those few paragraphs, I can chunk them together, and I can say that there's something going on in the marsh that needs the attention of a police officer. And the police officer is Snodgrass the snail. Now, Snodgrass the snail doesn't move very quickly. It took him 2 weeks before he could take action. It took him 2 weeks before he could reply to the complaint of Fabian the frog. So Fabian the frog does not want the dam to be there. However, as we continue reading on, "Do you have a permit for this dam?" he asked Bernadette the Beaver. "What?" she cried. "You must obey the law," said Snodgrass. So Bernadette the Beaver doesn't necessarily have a permit for here, so Snodgrass is saying that, well, it can just be removed to please Fabian the frog. "This is an outrage," cried Bernadette. She slapped her tail on the marsh, and her splashy outburst drew a crowd of animals who were equally outraged. So from this, I can see that there's an outrage, which means that Bernadette is not very happy. So she reacts by slapping her tail, and it gets a lot of other animals' attention who are equally outraged, which shows that they are not pleased either. They're on Bernadette's side. When Snodgrass finally arrived back at his office, he was met with a group of angry animals. "What's going on here?" asked Snodgrass. "This dam is saving our lives," said Topu the turtle. "Without it, the bears would eat us. There would be flooding everywhere without that dam. We'd all be washed away," said Una the opossum. So there's two animals that are in the group of angry animals, and they've explained why they feel like they need the dam. So it's there, it's helping them, it's saving them, and it's keeping them safe. "Whoa," said Snodgrass. "Suddenly from above, Sawney the songbird sang, and my family would starve." So there's another animal in there that's given us an example why they believe the dam should stay, and that Fabian the frog is incorrect. Snodgrass sighed. "I'll be back." Snodgrass went into his shell to think and study his law books. Remember, he's the police officer, so he needs to make the decision. He found one law that might just fix the problem. He emerged from his office. "It is time for a vote," he told the animals, "to decide if a permit is needed." Okay, so they're going to decide to see if it can stay or if it should be removed. The animals in the marsh cast their votes behind the cattails. The results were 231 to 1 in favor of not requiring a permit. "The dam will stay," Snodgrass announced. "Hooray!" the animals cried. Rollo, the marsh rabbit, lifted Snodgrass up and carried him on his back all the way around the marsh. The animals chanted, "Snodgrass! Snodgrass!" Okay, so 231 animals voted to say yes, it should stay, and only one said it should be removed. So overall, Snodgrass came to the conclusion that the dam can stay. And obviously the animals reacted in happiness and in enjoyment as they were cheering hooray, and they were chanting his name, making him feel special as if he made a good decision. Snodgrass couldn't remember ever getting anywhere so fast. He made Rollo his deputy. Now he had some help on the force along with some speedy transportation. Things were looking up on the marsh. Okay, so the rabbit Rollo lifted Snodgrass up and moved him very quickly, okay, because it was taking him a long time to take care of some problems on the marsh. But now things are looking up because he has a deputy that can help him speed around and take care of business. Okay, so if you need to reread that, go ahead back now. You can pause the video and put it right back to the beginning, reread it. But for now, we're going to move on to some of our questions here, and we're going to look and see how the text can help us solve it. Okay, so right over here, it says, "Why does Bernadette the Beaver slap her tail on the marsh?" Okay, now I can't just pick any choice that I think. I need to find that in the text and think about what I know from her reaction and what I've read. This is where we're going to make our inference. So, is she happy? Is she ashamed? Is she bored? Or is she angry? Let me scroll up and find that section up there. "You must obey the law," said Snodgrass. "This is an outrage," cried Bernadette. She slapped her tail on the marsh, and her splashy outburst drew a crowd of animals who were equally outraged. Okay, so why do you think she slaps her tail on the ground, on the water? Do you think she would be happy about doing that? Do you think she would be ashamed? Do you think she's bored? Or do you think she's angry? Think about that. Good. She is angry. She is outraged by this situation. She is so frustrated that Snodgrass is confronting her that she's slapping her tail on the marsh. And as she's cried, that's an outrage. She is frustrated. Okay. What about, how does Rollo the marsh rabbit feel after Snodgrass says the dam will stay? Okay, I need to find that part. And remember, we need to make our inference. What does the text tell us and what do we know? The dam will stay, Snodgrass announced. Hooray! The animals cried. Rollo the marsh rabbit lifted Snodgrass up and carried him on his back all the way around the marsh. The animals chanted, Snodgrass, Snodgrass. So if Rollo the marsh rabbit is lifting up and carrying around the marsh while everybody's shouting hooray and they're chanting his name, do you think that would mean that he's mad about the situation? Do you think he's scared about the situation? Do you think he's happy that the dam will stay? Or do you think he's surprised? What type of reaction would you get from somebody if they're chanting and shouting hooray and carrying him all around? Right. I think he's happy about the situation. It's not the marsh rabbit Rollo, they're all chanting hooray, they're chanting his name, and they're carrying him up around so he can be really celebrated. They're happy that Snodgrass has announced that the dam will stay. Which sentence shows why Snodgrass had to check on the dam? How did the story all begin? Why did Snodgrass have to go over to the dam to start with? Was it because Fabian the frog complained about it? Was it because Bernadette the Beaver didn't like it? Was it because bears and wolves came into the marsh? Or was there flooding in the marsh? Okay, Fabian the frog complained about it. It says right up here, one day Fabian the frog hopped over to Snodgrass's office. That beaver dam is blocking my view of the tastiest flies, he complained. 2 weeks later, Snodgrass arrived at the dam. Okay, so after that, after Fabian the frog had complained, Snodgrass had to go over and check on the dam. Bernadette the beaver did like the dam. She was upset that she was told that it maybe had to be moved. The bears and wolves didn't come in. That was a reason why the dam needs to stay. And there was no flooding on the marsh. Again, that was just a reason why the dam should stay. Okay, and our last question down here. How does Bernadette's choice to slap her tail on the marsh affect what happens next? Now let's have a look at affect here. Affect is another word for change. Okay, so how does Bernadette's choice to slap her tail on the marsh change what happened next? Okay, what was the outcome of Bernadette slapping her tail on the marsh? She slapped her tail on the marsh, and her splashy outburst drew a crowd of animals who were equally outraged. What happened after she slapped her tail on the marsh? Did it cause animals to crowd together? Did it cause Fabian to complain? It keeps flooding out. It convinces Snodgrass to keep the dam. What does it say? It says it drew, which means it brought together a crowd of animals who were equally outraged. So the outcome, what happened after she slapped her tail, was that it causes a crowd of animals together. Okay, so within these questions, we've gone over some inferences. Remember, inferences are when we take our knowledge from our own brain, we take the knowledge from the reading, and we put it together to make the best answer choice. Even if the text doesn't tell us exactly, we can infer what the answer would be. And we also talked about some characters and how they influence the story. So your job now is to go ahead and get out a piece of paper and a pencil, and you can answer this writing prompt right here. It says, what if the animals had voted against keeping the dam? What would have happened next? Create your own ending to the story and go ahead and write that down. I hope everyone has a great day and that everybody is healthy in here. That is us for our ELA lesson.